Caroline, I think that we can start. Tell me when it's on.
Yep, you're good to go.
Thank you very much for joining our first Data Plus Women online event. My name is Annabelle Rincon. I am a data visualization expert working at Fontobel. And with my friend Olivia Slitz, that's a brilliant data scientist working at Credit Suisse, we have launched this initiative. So Data Plus Women is like a networking group for women working around or with data. And we have regularly like a meetups group. Usually, of course, they are not virtual, but due to this situation and because we miss you so much, guys, we need to have this virtual meetup. So Olivia will introduce you with very awesome ladies today. We are very proud to have them, and I wanted to personally thank you for joining us. And after, just as a quick reminder, don't worry, we will explain everything to you later. We will have a virtual apéro where we can speak between each other and really connect. So if you have any question to the panelists, please use the Q&A box on the bottom of your Zoom window, and we will ask this question to the panelists. So enjoy and see you in 1 hour.
Thank you, Annabelle. Also a warm welcome from my side. And we are really excited to host this virtual event this time. And it's really a nice thing that we could organize it given the outstanding circumstances right now. So very looking forward to this event. And yeah, as Annabelle already mentioned, I will walk you through quickly to the through the agenda, and I will say some words about the panelists, but then more or less the stage opens up for all the panelists. In general, please feel free to use the Q&A chat box, because at the end of each presentation, we will have some spare minutes. So the panelists will go through the questions and try to answer them. And if we don't have enough time, you will have the chance to chat with them individually. So we have 3 amazing panelists. And we will start with our keynote speaker, which is Alison. Alison from Snowflake. I will say a few more words later on. Right before she starts to speak. Then we will have Bianka. Bianka is a data analyst at LeShop in Migros Group. Maybe it rings a bell for those of you who are living in Switzerland, and for the others, Bianka will explain more. And then in the end, we will have Nynke, who is a consultant at Willis Tower Watson in the area of employee insights. And she will also tell you what she does during her job, and will give us some interesting insights. So we start with Alison. As I mentioned, Alison works at Snowflake, and as you can see from her bio, she did a lot in the past, and she has a lot of experience in sales. At Snowflake, basically, she is building up the whole team and the strategy in the region, for the region EMEA, to basically accelerate the growth of Snowflake. And before that, she worked at various companies ranging from startups like AppDynamics, but also known companies like IBM, HP, and Oracle. But I think, Alison, you're better at telling us more about you, so I will just leave the stage for you, and you're good to go.
Thanks, Olivia. Brilliant. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Alison Tierney. I actually go by Ali. So you will see my name is Alison, but I refer to myself, and most people refer to me as Ali. I am, as Olivia said, I'm the Group Vice President for EMEA for Snowflake. I am American, as I'm sure many of you can tell by my accent. and currently reside in Portland, Oregon. However, I am moving to Amsterdam. I was actually in the process of moving to Amsterdam when we all moved to a virtual world due to the pandemic. So it is early here. I've gotten a lot of comments on my red jacket. I'm gonna out myself because we're all friends on this networking opportunity. I actually have pajamas on the bottom. So I look very professional now, but just know that I'm actually not as professional as I may look right now. So quickly, I just wanted to give you kind of a little bit of background of why me. So I am, I'm gonna just say 40-ish. I'm a 40-ish-year-old woman. I am educated in the US. I have 2 teenage children, a boy and a girl. I live in Portland, where I've lived for the last 20 years or so, off and on. I am a fitness enthusiast when able to go do what I want, which is things like hike mountains, hang out in the gym, all those fun things that everybody loves to do outside. And then I've been doing technology sales for the last 20 years. I'll talk a little bit about how I fell into this career. I think it's important as women and diversity in candidates, and as we're talking about the world and how to help the women in the world and other diverse people kind of come into our organization where we come from. I think it's important that we start to think about how we find more women and more diverse candidates into the pool. So that gives you a little bit about why me. But first, let me give you a little about where I fit in the data world. So in my past, if you look at, I've been in tech for a very long time. I joined Snowflake, which is a data platform, about 1.5 years ago. Snowflake was founded in 2012. We GA'd our very first product, our product that we sit on today, which is Enterprise Data Warehouse. We are a data platform, but our product was an Enterprise Data Warehouse. We GA'd in 2015, and our mission then, which remains our mission now, is to enable all organizations to be data-driven. We have somebody on the panel named Vivian. Vivian will help in the networking session if anybody has questions specifically about who we are, how we do what we do from a technology stack, where we came from, how we approach data, all of those things. Viv's going to take us through more of a deep dive into what Snowflake is. If you guys are interested, I'm not here to talk about it. I just want to give you the context of where I come into the data world. And the brilliance of us is our architecture. And again, I don't want to make this a plug for Snowflake, so I'm trying to stay away from the Snowflake data, but just understand that we are a Snowflake. We are data. We are a data warehouse and a data platform, data exchange. There's 100 things I could say about Snowflake, but I'm not going to. So instead, I'm going to talk about women. I'm passionate about women in the workplace. I'm passionate about diversity in the workplace, but I'm extremely passionate about women in the workplace. And part of what I'm passionate about is taking a more proactive and prescriptive approach to ensuring that we have more seats at the table. So what I'm going to do today is I'm not going to talk about the underrepresentation of women. Well, let me rephrase that. I am going to talk about the underrepresentation of women, but I'm going to talk about it as context about what we on the phone and on this virtual kind of platform, how we can all help each other to become more represented. I want to give, to the best of my ability, after 20 years of doing this thing, I've come up with some ideas and some advice and some tactical items that I think everybody can do, regardless of where you sit in your current organization, what role you're in, who you report to, or who may be reporting to you. I think all of us tactically can do something slightly differently to encourage more people that look like us to be part of, even if you're wearing pajama bottoms, to be part of a bigger kind of role in the organization, whether that's as a data analyst, as a technology seller, as a program person, someone just in general in tech. There are so many different roles that we have, and I want to ensure that we are thinking about and planning how we help people. And the reason I did Gloria Steinem is that as we became, the market is shifting, and there's more and more and more focus on women in the world and women in the workplace. And I think a lot of times it's like, well, we've made it so far. Why are we still having this dialogue, right? We started here, and why are we still doing this? Well, here's why we're still doing this. This is Amazon's workforce as a collective. 42% of the total Amazon workforce is women. 27% is leadership. So again, we're getting there. We're of their workforce, but this is Amazon, and Amazon is not just tech, right? We all think of Amazon because we live in the tech world as tech, but this is not just a tech statement. Microsoft, which is tech, 28% of their workforce is women. So as we start to get to a more STEM focused, technology focus, women tend to start to drop off in the workforce again. And of their leadership, only 25% is women. Google, same. 32% is the total, 26% of their leadership are women. So while we're definitely making huge strides, there is still a long way to go. So how we can help. And this is where I try not to get into the weeds around how underrepresented we are, because I think we all know the underrepresentation of women in the workplace. And how we can help, I think, is where it becomes really vital to start to think about what you guys can do, what the men on the phone can do, what the women on the phone can do, what everybody can do. And it starts with mentorship, how we interview and who we hire, how we coach. And it's funny because I think a lot of people think of coaching as only when you're in a management position or a leadership position do you have to coach. But we all coach our peers, we coach our friends, we coach our loved ones every day in the world. We're consistently coaching people. And there are some things you guys can think about in general about how to coach, and then how to be visible. And it's not, women tend to be underrepresented in general, but I think part of what we can do is become more visible, more active, more, do these kind of talks. When Annabelle and Olivia came and said, hey, would this be interesting to you? I almost always say yes. The only time I would say no is if I literally can't due to whatever, like I've got another commitment. And the reason for that is visibility. I want to be part of a bigger community. I want to be out there and talking as much as I can so that young ladies and other people in the world can see people like me and go, oh, wait a minute, I can do that. They can, if you vision someone that looks like you, it's a lot easier to see yourself in that role. When I was growing up young, there were not any of me standing anywhere where I could be, oh yeah, that could be me one day. I was looking at a man in a blue suit coat and thinking to myself, yeah, I could be that. It's a lot more, difficult to envision that when you're a young lady looking up the world. All right, so tactically, mentorship. So because I've been doing this for a while, I pretty consistently get requests to be a mentor, and vice versa. I also am looking for people to be my mentor. So as far as mentorship and what you can offer as a mentor to others, and then how you go to ask for a mentee or a mentor. Some kind of big piece of advice that I would give you in mentorship. When someone comes to you and says, hey, Jane, I'd really enjoy it if you could spend some time with me once a month, once a week, whatever that is, and help me, be my mentor. The very first thing you need to ask them for is why. What are they looking to accomplish? What are the goals they're trying to create? What are they hoping that you can help provide to them? And how can it be a nice give and get? So whenever you have a mentor relationship, my suggestion and my advice to you is, if you are the mentor, come with I often give my mentees homework. Next week, let's talk about the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. Like, let's sit down and let's talk about that specific book and some topics within that book. Or I look at, okay, Adrian, who's someone who's in my organization. Adrian, you want to become the next, GVP of EMEA. What do you think your big gaps are? Let's talk about one of those gaps and how we can work together over the next quarter to fill that gap. And so be prescriptive and be really, really honest about what both of you are bringing to the table, and make it specific. Where mentorships fall apart is when you get on the phone and chit chat for an hour, and then you hang up and you walk away, and it was great because you've created a networked connection, but it's just chit chat. And if I can chit chat with my girlfriends or whomever I need to, whenever I need, as all of you can, and we're all extremely busy. So that, from a mentorship, that would be my suggestion, is be prepared, be really honest, be transparent, and be specific about what you're looking to gain, on both sides of the relationship. If I'm choosing to mentor someone, there's generally a reason. I've chosen to take my time, which is the only thing I actually control in this world, to do that. So there's got to be a reason I'm doing it as well. And so it's that honesty and that openness. And I'm going to have questions at the end. I'm certain that I'm going to hit a button somewhere here. So I know I'll get to the end and then talk through whatever questions I have. Okay, on hiring and referrals. So you guys are either hiring managers or you're people who are in process of being interviewed, or you have been interviewed, or you will be interviewed. There are still a lot of studies, and I'm happy to share one that I just recently read, that bias in hiring and bias in referrals are still it's prevalent. There's a Stanford study that I read during a bias workshop a couple of years back, where the person's resume, her name was Jennifer, and all of the pronouns were she, and she was applying for a lab manager, a very STEM heavy lab. I think it was a lab manager job, but a very STEM job. And her resume was floated to, I think it was 100 different people. And then I have the study, I'll send it, so don't quote me on numbers, but it was sent to 100 scientists who are educated, come from a good background. And her resume was sent to them, and then the exact same resume, and all they did was change the pronouns and the name. They changed it to John, and they made it a he instead of she. And they shopped both resumes. The outcome of these two shops of these resumes was she was offered on average $4,000 less per year, same exact resume. And she was often offered I would like to mentor Jennifer and help her get to this job that she's actually applying for, but we're going to offer her a position in the lab versus a manager in the lab. John was offered the manager job. John was better. It was just he was received better. Exact same CV, just a different gender on the resume. So bias is still extremely common. And then the question becomes, well, how do we get over that? What I do in my interview process when I'm interviewing candidates to come in, I ensure that I have a female on the interview panel. So one of the things that I think it's the numbers of only 25% on average is what were represented. You may not have, as if you're a hiring manager, you may not have a peer or someone in your interview panel who is a woman, just by nature of the numbers. I go to different teams. I go find myself a female who happens to be in a different organization or a different team. I'm also fortunate that I am a woman, so I'm often pulled into other people's interview panels that the person may not ever report to me or be in my organization, but I will be in the interview panel for a couple of reasons. The first reason is, again, candidates coming into the process, seeing another woman helps them feel confident and comfortable in the fact that your organization is open and has diverse candidates and diversity in the industry and in your workplace. Second, having a female on the interview panel allows for a different set of eyes. So a story from, I was in an interview in New York with a group of people, and we were talking about the candidates afterwards. And it was a group of men and myself talking about a group of panelists, a group of interviews that came in. And the female candidate, they used words like she was soft, she didn't have enough presence in the room. And I was able to stand up and go, yeah, I agree. She did approach it differently. However, did you hear the words she chose to use and the way that she was listening and the ability that she had to change the dynamics of the interview so that you guys felt more comfortable having this dialogue? And when I said that, I got the oh and the aha and it wasn't about her being soft. It was more about the way that candidate, who actually was who we ended up hiring because she was by far the most qualified, she had just changed the dynamic and she presented differently. And had I not been in the interview panel, she would have been discounted as too soft and too not aggressive enough for selling. And as we all know, you don't have to all be the same to sell. Women sell brilliantly because we do it just a little bit differently. So that's my hiring, is just make sure that you have a diverse panel whenever you're interviewing. And when you are interviewing somewhere else, if you're not part of the interview panel, but you're the candidate coming in, I would ask to interview with a diverse person. So, hey, I'm sitting with you guys. Who else is in your organization that, can I interview with a woman? Is there a peer of mine that I could work with that is a female? Like, I would very specifically ask to interview with someone that looks like you, whether that you is a woman or you is Indian or whatever background you come from. If it is important to you that you have people that are like-minded in the organization, ask to interview with people that look like you. it shows interest in the company as a whole and interest in diverse backgrounds and what's going on. I promised Olivia that I would be fast, so I'm getting there, Olivia, I swear. All right, coaching. So here's my thing on coaching, and this one's a hard one. So like I said, we often think of coaches as people in charge or leadership. And as I said when I started, we all coach all day. We coach our peers, we coach our friends, we coach our kids, we coach whomever. Here's something that the one thing, and I took this away, this was a friend of mine a couple of years back. We need to stand up for what's right. And often when we're coaching people, we're getting questions like, hey, this situation just happened. How would you handle it? I've been faced, and I think all of us have been faced with, we're sitting in a room and we hear something that is off-putting, whether that's a group of people want to go do an event that is excluding groups of people. And I'm trying to stay away from a third rail here, but if you hear people saying something negative about a woman, someone, when you're coaching someone and you hear negative speak about themselves or them speaking about other women or any of those, the big coaching piece of advice I would give everybody on this phone is stand up for what's right. And it is the hardest thing to do. And I will give an example. We were in Las Vegas for a customer, a big kind of kickoff customer event. This was 2 or 3 years ago. And there was a group of people talking about going to a gentleman's club later in the evening. And there were women involved in the conversation. And I was part of the conversation. And it was the most uncomfortable conversation I'd been in because I felt like I had to go in order to be part of the group. But I absolutely had zero desire to go. And the person who brought it up was a leader. And the thing that I thought in the back of my mind is, why is this man bringing up a gentleman's club in this kind of environment? It doesn't make sense anymore. It's illogical. It doesn't fit in the world that we all live in with Me Too movements and equality at the table and all of these things in a corporate environment. To talk about going to this kind of event after a work was just somewhat shocking to me. And my instinct was just to shut my mouth and be mad about it and move on and not say anything. Instead, I talked to a woman who coached me, and this is my coach, and she said, listen, you need to stand up and tell this person how uncomfortable it made you, because it's on you to start to change that dialogue. So I then went and talked to this man and said, I don't know if you realize how uncomfortable it is when you talk about going to these clubs and these things. It is so hard for me as a woman to not want to participate, but it is so uncomfortable for me to participate, and you put me in a weird position. And he immediately was shocked, said, oh, I never even realized it. I didn't mean it that way. I'm so sorry. He then sent an email to everybody and apologized and owned that very much. And so I changed that dialogue by standing up and having an opinion and not fighting for what was right, but just calling out when things aren't right. And had my coach, my female friend who was in the business, not pushed me into that, I never would have done it. So my point here on coaching is sometimes being a coach is helping somebody else find their voice. And that voice is difficult at times to share, even today, even with everything being equality and women are there, it is still difficult to share. So what I would tell you is when you are a coach, help people find their voice, be behind them, and help lift people up in whatever fashion you can. And then lastly, here's RGB, right? Be visible. And this is where I started, and I will finish here as well, is if you're given the opportunity to stand up and speak in front of your company, do it. Even though it is the most uncomfortable thing in the world for you, do it. Practice and take it. Be visible on LinkedIn. Be visible with your friend group. Be visible in your network. Just be visible. And yes, for your own brand, it's important, and your own career, it's important. But think about my 11-year-old daughter. She may be wanting to come in and be a data scientist and not seeing other data scientists. It makes her feel that are women. It's subconscious, but the more you guys are out there, the more you're on LinkedIn, the more you're standing up and giving talks, the more you're engaged, the more women coming up behind you will engage. And I know, trust me, I know how uncomfortable it is. And doing talks in your pajamas at 7 in the morning is probably not what everybody thinks about all day, every day, but I'm telling you, it is so vital to the long-term, more diversity in our workplace. The more you see each other, the more we see and help each other, the better off we'll be. So, and that is where I will leave it. And Olivia, I think I did it in about 11 minutes. I wasn't timing, but there you go.
It was perfect. Thank you, Ellie,
Yes.
for such an inspiring last part, especially because that's what we are actually trying to do here. So
brilliant.
So,
I will stop my share so that somebody else can take it.
Yeah.
There we go.
So don't be shy. Ask your questions now. You have the chance to do it on the Q&A chat.
And I will also be part of the Remo and the demo and everything, the networking at the end as well. So anybody who has questions that want to take it offline, I'm happy to take it offline as well.
And Bianca and Nynke, if you have any question, you can also take this chance.
No question. Everyone is shy.
I have a question. How to deal with sexism in women? I think that you refer that some women are like very hard on each other.
Oh, yeah, it's I agree. And I think it goes back. I mean, I think we all think it and we all talk about it. I think we grew up and we are growing up in a scarcity world where we've been taught subconsciously that there aren't enough jobs for all of us. And I think we tend to want to step on each other's heads because of it. And I think that's where the sexism stems from. Fight in your own bias, fight yourself, fight others. When you hear people bad mouthing each other in the community that are women, stand up and make sure that you don't. And again, just be vocal and be open and be honest about where we're different in a good way. And I think our femininity is what makes us as powerful as we are. So just again, the way I fight sexism in other women is I call it out as best I can and when I see it, and it takes every one of us at the grassroots to deal with it.
Another attendee asked any suggestion on how to get over the hesitation of putting yourself out there. So,
how to get over the oh yeah, so honestly, and I mean this so sincerely, even before this, where this is a really intimate, easy community of women that I'm comfortable talking in front of, my stomach hurt a little bit, my hands got a little bit clammy. Practice. The one thing I tell this to everybody, put your pitch together. Olivia and Annabelle saw I'd been working on this for about 2 weeks. And I worked through the talk track and talk it. And then before I went to bed last night, I thought about it again. I read through it again. And then when I woke up this morning and read through it again. So just the more you practice, the better you become at doing it, because it becomes habit almost. It becomes ingrained. You build up a scar to it. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And it is uncomfortable. It is still uncomfortable for me every single day. And I do it all the time. It is still uncomfortable. So practice is the only thing I can tell you.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, that is a safe place. So if anyone wants to speak next time, please contact us, and we will glad to have you on stage.
Practice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone mentioned how it is important for men to actually join events such as this. I mean, yeah, it's important that in the Data Plus Women event, for instance, some men also join.
So I don't know if that's for me or for everybody, but I think you guys all know it's vital for men to join, right? They're 50% of their 49% of the population, but they still make up 80% of the decision-making criteria. And they're often, men as much as women are the ones that are helping us get ahead. I have brilliant sponsors in the world that are men as well as women. The more you can drag, and it was one of the gentlemen on my team that actually brought me to this forum, actually engaged me and introduced me to Olivia and Annabelle as far as being on this panel. The more you can bring your male counterparts into your world and get help, the better. So yes, encourage men to join you all the time.
I mean, Thank you very much, Alison. It was very enlightening for me also.
Mm-hmm.
I almost cry. I hope that no one noticed.
I think there's still some question. Which social media platforms can we follow you on?
We were talking about this morning. So I am only on LinkedIn. I actually have a Twitter profile, but I found myself voyeuristically spending far too much time on Twitter and making bad decisions based on Twitter. So I am only on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn. That's where I'm at.
All right. And then one last question, which I would actually also wanted to ask before that. We talked about the practicing for speaking up, but there's another part for a question. How do you have any advice on being more visible? Any practical tips for that?
I don't have practical tips. Here's what I would tell you, and it's my own experience, and my instinct is it's probably many of yours. I ducked out of a lot of opportunities to speak in public, whether that's in small groups of people, like we're in team meetings. I'll have an idea and swallow it because I'm uncomfortable, or maybe I'm going to look stupid, or nobody wants to hear my voice anyway, or I'm asked to be the one to present and I'll be like, oh, well, maybe John over there would be better at it. And I found myself ducking out of a lot of opportunities where I could have my voice heard. So my advice is, my instinct is, many of you probably are in that same boat where you're in a bigger group or a bigger forum where you may be the only person at the woman at the table. Don't tamp it down. Instead, bring it up. Talk. Have an opinion. Put it out there. So what? You may look stupid. Who cares, right? Like at the end of the day, no one, what's the worst thing that could happen? So take the opportunities. If someone asks you to speak, say yes, thank you very much, and then go figure out how to do it. So I think to be more visible, it's just to do more yesing. Say yes instead of no. Lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg has said.
I love that. So to the whole audience, when you were just listening, we're still always keen on having more speakers. So please feel free to join us afterwards and take the advice of Ellie. Speak up, and you can just grow with that. So thank you very much, Ellie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess there are no other questions. So I think we can move on to our second speaker, which is Bianka. I already mentioned Bianka before. She is a data analyst at LeShop and part of Migros Group. So a very big company here in Switzerland. And Bianka has been working as a digital data analyst at Migros. And what she's doing there, she's gonna tell us in detail in a few minutes. But basically, she's trying to get more insights and helping other people to get more insights from interesting data sets, such as digital sales data sets, marketing, and custom behavior data. So I'm really looking forward to this presentation because I think she has a lot of interesting things to share. So Bianka, the stage is yours. I will stop sharing and feel free to present.
Thank you, Olivia. One second. So also a very warm welcome to this edition of Data Plus Women Zurich from my side. My name is Bianka Swierczynska, and like Olivia mentioned, I'm a data analyst at LeShop, which is part of the Migros Group. And today I will have the pleasure to talk to you about the site search analysis. I just kick this off with a few words about me. So I joined the Migros Group back in 2016 as a digital data analyst. From the beginning of this month, I moved to LeShop and work as a data analyst. What I do daily is I help my stakeholder draw insights from our data, and we have a lot of it. So it's everything that we collect from the website, the app, and also a lot of online, offline data that we then combine. And why I chose this topic for today? Well, that was actually my recent project. where we looked at the impact of site search and we wanted to optimize it. And because I found it so interesting, I decided I would like to share some learnings with you. And what are we going to look at today? Well, first of all, to have everybody on the same page, I'm going to explain what a site search is. Then I'll try to convince you why looking at this data is really important and what insights you can draw from this data. And I will also show you some of our data and our first lessons learned. The project is still ongoing, and we have only just finished phase 1. I will also tell you what we're going to do in phase 2, but there is some first lessons learned that I will discuss here. Well, so what a site search is, it is a functionality that you have either in an app on a web, which is this search box that will allow you to search for a given content or a given product. It can be measured with various analytics tools. So basically what you can measure is the overall usage, so how many people use it, but you can also actually capture the exact search terms that the user will put into the search box. This data is then really, really interesting to analyze. We at the Migros Group use Google Analytics as one of the tools to analyze this kind of data. Well, let's talk about it for a little bit. Well, as we're doing it virtually, so we can't have a discussion because I was actually, I wanted to ask you some questions. But so instead of that, I will share my experience, but you know there's a Q&A box and I would love you to drop your comments or your experiences with the site search. Well, do you use it at all? In what kind of websites or apps would you use it? And are you happy with the search results? That's probably the most important question. Well, as for my experience, I use it quite often on a mobile, on a very complex website or apps where navigating through the structure will be not so easy. As an example, like websites like Amazon or Zalando, I think you get the idea. Am I happy with the search results? Not always. And I also noticed that the more complex the website is, the less happy I'm normally with the search results. Well, why does it matter? I mentioned to you that we tend to use it also as a kind of a method of navigation while we move through the website or the app. It is also one of the very few pieces of data where we can actually see the visitor intent, as we also capture the exact search terms that the user will put with all the spelling mistake, with everything. This is also like a great basis for insights for our marketing purposes. You can use the ideas for example, for search campaigns. Well, if I still haven't convinced you that it's really important to look at the data, let's have a look at some numbers together. This data comes from our Google Analytics account. This is an aggregated data from the first quarter. And what do we have here? First of all, I ask myself a question, okay, so how many of our users do actually use this functionality? Well, as you see in the first pie chart on the left-hand side, it's not that much, it's around 1/4. In this case, it was 27%. But when it gets really interesting is when you look at the second pie chart, which is on your right-hand side, the revenue share. So you see there, this quarter of people who actually use site search, they generate more than 63% of your revenue. That is from the online sales. And it's very similar story when you look at the online transactions as well. So this quarter of people will actually generate around 65% of your online transactions. The data will obviously vary from depending what kind of period you take, but it's very much on a very similar level as well. What I also found very interesting and decided to put it here is that on average, the users who search will have a 5% or more or higher value of the average order. And also those who search are 2.6 times more likely to complete a purchase. Well, you've seen the impact that that the site search has on our business, and it was something that really surprised me that it actually matters that much. So we knew at this point that it was really important to go on with this project, but what we wanted to find out was how much fine-tuning we actually had to do with our search algorithm. So what we needed was like a health check of our own site search. So what I'm going to show you now is some of the things that we looked in phase 1. These are very basic metrics and what we learned from them. Well, the first thing that we looked at was the percentage of search exit. What this number tells you, this is actually a percentage of users that will leave your website or your app immediately after searching or seeing the search result page. What you see here is a screenshot from our Google Analytics account, and this tool allows us to have the exact search terms, which you see on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you will see exactly the percentage of search exits. You can do it on an aggregated level, but you can also drill down to really to the individual search terms. The other thing that we looked at were page views per search. This is really important because it gives you an indication of how many pages of search results the user really had to look at before they actually got to the desired information. And again, this is a screenshot from our Google Analytics account. You see the search terms on the left-hand side and the metric that we use on the very right-hand side. The higher the number, obviously the less user-friendly experience it is for our visitor. So what did we learn from these two things? Well, when it comes to search exits, we found out that around 19% of them had a higher exit rate than 50%. Well, that's obviously not good because it's pretty high. So what were the reasons for it? Well, on one hand side, you could tell that our search algorithm needs some optimization, but also the other explanation may be that for certain products or services, there was no content for them. That's why there wasn't any match. As for the page views per search, we found out that for around 35% of our search terms, the user had to look through more than one search result page. It is generally so that when you have generic search terms, like for example, a laptop or I don't know, an iPhone, you will have a higher page view per search than if you take the specific keywords, like for example, I don't know, iPhone 11. But we decided to focus in the first phase on the specific keywords with the high page views per search. Well, as we move now to phase 2, there are several things that we'll be looking at. One of them will be the categorization of our search terms. I mentioned already that we looked at the specific and the generic ones, but we also can add the brand-specific search terms. We also at Migros have the ability to distinguish between the search terms that come from our visitors or clients or the sales assistant, because for those of you who are in Switzerland, you know that electronics has a physical presence. So we are able to distinguish that and see how the data looks then. Also, one of the very important things we know we have to tackle is the search terms with null results. For this one, we've already implemented some custom tracking that will allow us to see where we have the major issues with our search algorithm and where we need to do some optimization. It's a very similar story with the next point, where we also had to implement some custom trackings. And this one will tell us we wanted to see which products are we showing the user for which search term. And again, it is a way for us to monitor if we showing the right products for the right search term. And in doing so, we enhance the customer experience. The segmentation is one of the next points. We need to drill in the data, or we need to dig really deeper. And what I mean by that, we will definitely do the same analysis, but see if there's any difference if we take, for example, mobile searches or desktop searches, if there are any difference if we take into account new visitors or returning visitors. I hope you get the idea. At last, we will also have a look at the percentage of search refinements. What does it mean? The number or the percentage, this is the percentage of searches that will result in a search refinement or an immediate search after the initial one. What it implies is that if the user does so, that the first search was not really successful. So this is something that we would definitely have to look at. At this point, I would like to thank you for your attention. I hope I could explain to you what a site search is, why it matters to look at the data, and I hope you also feel inspired to look at your data and see what insights you can find out. And I would like to thank Olivia and Annabelle for the opportunity to speak today. And I'm happy to take the questions in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bianca. I mean, it's a very nice presentation, and at least we learn a lot about a site search. I should do that for my blog.
Happy to support you. And you should be now careful what you type in your in your website when you're doing online shopping, I guess.
Yeah, but we don't have the personal data, so it's just the search term.
Yeah. All right. Any questions from the audience?
No question, but I'm sure that after, during the networking part, some people... yes, we have. From Danuta, are you able to generate a customer profile, estimate age, sex, blah, blah, based on the data?
Yes, not exactly relating to the search data, but you have ways to do it. You can either use your own data, or you can rely on the data from Google, because they will basically also give you some insight as to the demographics, where the user comes from, the age, gender, and so on. As for the Google data, it will only be true. I mean, they can only do it for users that have logged in one of the Google accounts. That can be either Gmail or YouTube or Google My Business, any of these. Then they will be able to give you this kind of data. So it won't be possible for the 100% of the users.
Someone asked you, what difficulty did you face in rolling the features? I mean, not in terms of technology, but from decision maker in the company.
I think, as with most of the things, it's always the challenge to convince management that they give you enough attention and that they give you enough resources for this project. That's why I prepared this slide with the numbers when I showed you what impact did it have on the transaction and on the revenue. because normally if you go into search optimization, it's a longer project that requires a lot of resources, also the precious IT and data science resources. So you really need to do the convincing before they agree.
Okay, we have much more questions on the Q&A. Do you want Bianka to pick one, maybe?
I think I only see two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm using your financing for special marketing. Well, not to my knowledge. I'm not the part of the media team, but I don't think that they use it.
Oh my gosh. I think.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions now. Maybe we can have them answer during the networking part. Because
yes, I will be there. I will be there. Happy to take them.
Cool. Thank you. So,
Thank you
Anneliana
so much.
and Sylvia, please go to the networking part and try to find Bianka. She will be seated at one of the tables.
Yes, I would take them.
We will explain you how to connect later.
All right. Yeah, so as we said before, please remember your questions and ask them later on in the apéro part. So let's move on to our last speaker for today, which is Nynke. Nynke is a consultant at Willis Towers Watson. I think I've mentioned that already. What is really interesting about Nynke is that she actually works at Willis Towers Watson with many Swiss and larger organizations in projects with regard to all the employee survey themes. So that is quite interesting what she will present. I think she can talk a lot more about that. I just wanted to mention Nynke's background, which is in sociology. She has a PhD in there. And that's good to remember because it explains why she's so passionate about what she's gonna present to us today. So Nynke, please feel free to start. I will stop sharing and again, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you see? Cool, well, thank you, Olivia. Yeah, so as Olivia already mentioned, I'm not a data scientist, I'm a sociologist. I used to actually work at the university to research cooperation problems in behavioral experiments, which was quite cool. But now since 2015, I work at Willis Towers Watson in the Employee Insights practice. And Employee Insights is a part of what we call Talent and Reward. And what we do in Talent and Reward is we work with HR departments and we advise them on basically everything that has to do with the employee experience of their people. So, for example, we advise them about hiring the right people for the right job, about providing appropriate compensation and benefits, about engaging employees, and also really about communicating to their employees so they really are aware of what the company actually offers them. So it's really quite broad. And I was thinking for today, so how do we use data? And we use data in very many ways, but basically the main principle is that we collect data with our clients together. And then because we have many clients, we are able to aggregate this data into benchmarks. And we provide the software for clients where they can look into their data, where they can really slice and dice their results, and also compare themselves to the benchmarks that we made. So compare themselves really to other similar companies and see where they stand. And along this entire process, we also help clients through consultancy. So we do project management and we also help them to interpret the results of their analysis and to help them also with the next steps. Like, what do you now do given where you stand compared to these benchmarks? So for today, I wanted to give you a few examples of the kinds of benchmarks that we have and the kind of data that we collect with our clients. And also because this is a conference for women, I wanted to show a little bit of the data that we have in Switzerland, and to show you where do we see actually differences in Switzerland between men and women. So the first example that I wanted to highlight, that's our team called Data Services. And what they've done is they have developed really a grading system, and companies can use this system to systematically really categorize the jobs that they have. So depending on the level of education that it requires, the skills that you need, the level of responsibility that you will have, you can use this global system to grade any position. And we ask from our clients that use this grading system to provide us with a list of their employees and then some demographics of these employees, and then the job level that these people have, and also the salary that they pay. So if we aggregate all this data from our different clients, so we have more than 300 clients like this in Switzerland, this helps HR companies to benchmark salaries. So for example, if a Swiss HR manager wants to hire an engineer, they can go into our software and they can really see, like, for an engineer with 5 years of working experience in Switzerland, you typically would pay something like this. So that's what we do. And recently I was working with this team to actually take a look at this benchmark. So these are more than 300 companies, more than 100,000 employees. And this is actually quite a rich source of market data that we have. So I looked with this company specifically at this data set to look at gender differences. And here's something that we found. So this links also very nicely to the first presentation. So these are the global grades of the grading system that we provide. So if you are job grade 2, that would be a manual position. So for example, that would be a cleaner or a janitor. And if you move to the higher levels, so around grade 4 to grade 7, those are support functions. So for example, administrative work, technical support, help desk, jobs like that. Then from grade 8, that's where the professional position starts. So grade 8 would be a university graduate position. And from then onwards, you move into the higher level professionals. And also from grade 10 onwards, you see the manager position starting. So really, the more further up you go, you really come into the region of the very high level specialist or the high level managers in an organization. And when we were looking at this data and also looking at the gender splits that we have, we really were quite taken aback by the extent to which women are underrepresented at the higher grades. So in the support functions, the division is still really 50-50, although it's quite segregated. So the women are in business support and the men are in technical support generally. And then when you, from the entry level professionals, it's also still quite equally divided. But as you move up in the hierarchy, the women really are missing completely in Switzerland. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the salary data that go with this graph, but what I can tell you is globally, so average over everybody, the gender pay gap is around 14%. So the median salary of a woman in our data is 14% lower than the median salary of the man. So that's quite a big gap, and it's also comparable to what we see in the Swiss Federal Statistics Office. But if we look at the deeper dive analysis, so if we put it in a regression analysis, actually, if you look at the job levels and the position that women have, this almost completely explains the gender pay gap. So what we see in our data, there are small differences in pay between men and women, but especially in Switzerland, there are just really very many women missing at the higher levels and overrepresented at the lower job levels. So the second example that I wanted to talk about today, that is the rather soft data, so the opinion data. And this is what we collect in Employee Insights. So that's the team that I am working for. And in Employee Insights, we conduct opinion surveys for client organizations. And we ask our clients really about all aspects of the employee experience that they perceive. So for example, we ask the employees what they think about management, about leadership, about career development, about the company culture. So really can be any topic. And the principle is really very similar to what we do in data services. So we have a whole bank of questions that we ask to our clients, so different, like hundreds of different questions. And if our clients choose from this question bank, then we can also compare the results that they get with other clients. So we develop special reporting dashboards that managers can go into, and they can look at the results of their team, and they can also compare, like, are people in my team on average more positive or more negative about certain topics than what we typically see in the industry, or what we see in the function, or what we see in the country. And also, this is quite a rich source of data. So we survey more than 10 million employees worldwide every year. So we have lots of data, and there's many possible ways in which you can cut this data. So one thing that I looked at also for some other projects are the national norms. So we really have national norms for almost every country that contain everybody that we surveyed in that country across all industries. And for our clients, these national norms are really very useful, because typically someone in Brazil is more positive in an employee survey than someone in France. So for example, if you are now in a French company and you look at your results and you compare it to a global benchmark, you might see a lot of red scores. So that's where the national benchmark comes in, and you can really see, like, do I have a problem in my company, or is this really something related to people in France just generally being a little bit more critical? So we have a lot of these benchmarks, and also for today, I wanted to take a look at the benchmarks and see where do we see the biggest differences in perceptions of the employee experience between men and women. And what we did, we looked at all countries in Europe, and what you see on the slide are some of the topics that we measure. So for example, if you have a question, I feel that management supports equal opportunity for all employees. In Europe, on average, women are 2 percentage points less positive about this than men, across everyone in Europe that we survey. And 2 percentage points doesn't seem like a lot. It's not that much, but you have to keep in mind that these are questions that we present, that I present on the slide, where we see the same trend in basically every European country where we have a benchmark for. So in some countries, the gender gap is a bit bigger than in others, but we see it everywhere. And also, these are really big samples. So these are really hundreds of thousands of people. So still 2 percentage points is highly significant, and it's a lot of people. And what we see, so here you see some differences between men and women in their perception of diversity and equal opportunities at their company. And generally, we see that women are really quite a lot more negative than men about equal opportunities, about fair treatment of employees, about fair treatment of gender differences. And outside of the box, I've also put the difference that we see in our Switzerland national norm, and there is even quite a lot bigger. So if you think about this question, I feel management support equal opportunities for employees. Women in Switzerland are 10 percentage points more negative than men. And honestly, if one of my clients is 10 percentage points below the benchmark, typically they will have an issue with something. So this is, especially in Switzerland, something where we see some of the biggest consistent gender differences. Another topic that I looked at was recognition and career development opportunities. So again, here you see generally in Europe, the difference between men and women, and then what it is in Switzerland. And for the European trend, we can see that this is not only Europe as a whole, but we see it in basically every single country. And the pattern that we typically see is that women do feel recognized, they do feel that they're treated fairly, but what we see is that they don't see that it is translated into fair pay, so pay for performance. And especially we see that women are a lot more critical about their career development opportunities, which honestly, if you look at the salary data that we showed earlier, does make sense. So women are lower in the hierarchy and they seem to find it difficult to move up. And finally, one thing that we see also in many client organizations and that we also see apparently global across Europe is that women are more afraid to speak up in their company. So they typically perceive their company as a bit less ethical. And they're less likely to feel that it is safe for them to speak up in the company. And I've seen this already with many clients, and this is really quite a shame, because even if the differences are not big, if the women don't feel that they can speak up, this really means that the company is missing out on quite some interesting opinions that women might have, that they are just not, they feel like they're not able to share. So also that is a trend that we see generally. So in summary, it was a very short talk, of course, but what I wanted to say today is that at Willis Towers Watson, what we do is we help our clients to measure their employee experience and also to look at their results and to improve their employee experience based on what they see. And to do so, we collect data with them. And because we have many clients, we can aggregate this data and we can create benchmarks that the clients can compare themselves with. And one added benefit of having so many benchmarks is that we also have internally quite a lot of cool data, really big data sets that we can use to look at market trends, such as what we just did, gender differences. And what we see is that women generally have very different jobs than men, also on average lower level jobs than men. And in addition, we see that some aspects of the employee experience are really perceived differently by women and generally a little bit more negative than what we see for men. And this is, of course, very high level. This is all, we could talk about this for much more time, but we only have a few minutes today. But I think what it shows, or in what it shows overall, the picture that emerges is that there is still, in some respects, quite a way to go for Switzerland to achieve gender equality. So, am I still within the time?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Cool.
Thank you very much, Nynke. I really like your presentation, very interesting, especially the part where French people, because I'm French, are like complaining much than the European colleagues.
It's the same in Germany, but Germans are also a bit more negative.
It's okay. We have some questions. So Fatima asked, the fact that there are so few women in grade 20, could it be explained by the sexism of the past? I was assuming that people in higher grade are also more senior.
Exactly, yeah, that could be. So the thing is, we only looked at one data point. So 1 year, we only looked at the 2019 data. So we are not able to distinguish whether it is that women in the past had a different career path, but that it might be that the women who start their career today, 30 years from now, they will be much more equal. I think so. We do see that as people get older, the gender gap gets a lot bigger. So that might be the case. And I think also the Swiss Statistics Office has data for multiple years, and they do also, I think they reported last Tuesday that the gender gap is slowly closing. So yeah, that could be.
We have someone asking, so very insightful, that was a comment. Can we access this data or some of the study results somewhere?
So no, you cannot access the data. That's the data that we provide to our clients. But we do have some general studies that we do on our benchmark that we also publish on our website here. So we have some studies.
I'm sure that you will have much more questions during the apéro part. I will just post now the apéro link. So when you will click there, you will see you just have to enter your email or something. And you will have like kind of a virtual coffee with some table. You just have to sit on one of these tables and you can start a conversation with the people that are sit on the table. I can very quickly share my screen so you see how it looks like. You see, you have different floors, so don't try to eat on one of the second or the third floor. Huh? Try really to have the first conversation here. And you see here, I always Remo already affect myself to one of the table, and of course people can join. We will keep this conversation on Zoom in order that if you have a problem to join, we can help you. And And that's it. I want to thank very much all the participants, all the speakers, that we harass a little so they speak, but I think that is good. And this go into what Alison was telling us, that we have to be more visible. So it's a good practice. And thank you also to Caroline for helping us on setting our first virtual. And Vivian will be, from Snowflake, will be there also to the apéro part. If you have any additional technical question, or if you want to see demo in Snowflake in action, is a great tool, but I cannot speak too much about it. And Olivia, some words maybe?
Yeah, thank you everyone for this really insightful presentations and speeches today. I think I can speak for everyone. We are all inspired and are getting out of this lockdown situation with much more energy. And yeah, thank you to everyone who helped organizing it and who organized it. And I'm looking forward to speak to you either on this apéro or next time on our next event, next virtual event. Will be in June, right, Annabelle? I think we're planning it in June. So
great
yeah,
speakers aligned. Great speakers already.
Yeah,
aligned.
We already have great speakers. So yeah, grab your glass of wine or another glass of, I don't know, a cocktail, tea, water, and join us for the apéro. And thank you for joining.
Thank you. See you soon. In some seconds. I'm already waiting for you on the other part.
Thanks.